Step out. Turn around. Hands behind your back.
What's the legal reason for the stop?
You're not free to go until I say. Stop arguing. Backup's coming.
I want it on record you never stated cause.
Empty, a long stretch of asphalt cutting through darkness with only scattered streetlights breaking the night. Wind rushed past open fields. Tires hummed steadily. It was the kind of road where stops felt personal because there was no one else to watch. A black man drove alone in a gray sedan. Hands relaxed on the wheel, speed steady. The dashboard clock glowed just after 11. He had driven this route more times than he could count. Routine, familiar, quiet. Red and blue lights flared suddenly in his mirrors. He slowed immediately and signaled, pulling onto the shoulder with practiced ease. Gravel crunched under tires. The engine idled low. He rolled the window down before the cruiser even stopped behind him. A young officer stepped out, fast boots, hitting pavement, hard flashlight already up. The beam cut straight through the open window, too close, too bright. License and registration, now. The driver stayed still, hands visible on the wheel. "Good evening, officer. May I ask the reason for the stop?" The officer did not answer. He leaned in instead, scanning the interior, the back seat, the trunk line. His light lingered on the driver's face longer than necessary. "I said license and registration." The driver nodded once. He reached slowly for his wallet, narrating the movement without being asked. Then for the glove compartment. He handed both items out calmly. The officer glanced at them without really looking. "Where are you coming from?" "From a meeting." "What kind of meeting?" "Work-related." The officer's jaw tightened. "Step out of the vehicle." The driver paused just long enough to be deliberate. "On what grounds, officer?" "Because I told you to." Passing headlights slowed as cars drifted by, drivers turning their heads to look. The officer stepped closer, hand hovering near his belt. "Sir," the driver said evenly, "am I being detained or am I free to go?" The question landed heavy in the open air. The officer straightened, voice rising. "You're not free to go until I say you are. Step out of the car now." The driver complied. He opened the door carefully and stepped onto the shoulder, closing it behind him. He stood with his hands visible, posture calm, eyes forward. The wind tugged lightly at his jacket. "Turn around," the officer said. "Why?" "Officer safety." The driver did not argue. He turned, slowly facing the road cars passing a few feet away. The flashlight swept over him again, searching for something that was not there. "You seem nervous," the officer said. "I am standing on the side of a highway at night," the driver replied calmly. That answer did not help. The officer keyed his radio. "I'm going to need backup." The static hissed back in acknowledgement. The officer took a step closer, crowding space that did not need to be crowded. What had begun as a routine stop had already shifted into something else. A test of authority on an empty road under flashing lights with no witnesses except the dark and the passing cars. The driver stood still, breathing steady, knowing from experience that moments like this could tilt fast in the wrong direction. Down the highway, another set of headlights appeared, growing brighter as a second cruiser approached. The night was about to change. The stop made sense only if you did not know who the man on the shoulder really was. To the rookie officer, he was just another driver on a dark road, another moment to assert control. To the state police command structure, he was a name printed at the top of memos, a voice that carried across districts, a standard others were measured against. Marcus Hale had joined the state police more than 25 years earlier, back when senior officers taught recruits that restraint was not weakness, and silence was often the smartest move. He had worked patrol investigations, internal reviews. He had written disciplinary findings late at night and signed termination papers early in the morning. He knew how patterns formed, how small decisions turned into big failures. He rose through the ranks without shortcuts. Sergeant, lieutenant, captain. Each promotion came after years of watching others mishandle power. He learned that the most dangerous officers were not the violent ones at first glance, but the insecure ones, the ones who mistook obedience for respect. As a commander, Hale oversaw training and field operations across multiple regions. He reviewed body camera footage weekly. He recognized escalation before it reached headlines. He had ended careers for less than what was happening to him now. Off-duty, he stayed invisible. No marked vehicle, no uniform, no announcements. He believed authority should work even when no one knew who you were. Especially then. That night, he was returning from a closed-door briefing on use of force complaints and rookie supervision. Irony did not escape him. He had listened to supervisors argue that new officers needed time to grow into judgment. He had countered that time without correction created entitlement. The rookie who stopped him represented that exact gap. Fresh out of the academy, evaluations praising confidence and command presence. Notes about tone flagged but deferred. No serious consequences yet, just potential. Standing on the shoulder, Hale felt the familiar imbalance. A young officer performing authority instead of applying it. Commands issued without explanation. Space invaded without cause. Backup requested not for safety, but for reinforcement. He did not identify himself. Not because he feared the interaction, but because he understood its value. This was how the system treated someone it believed was ordinary. This was the version that mattered. The wind carried the sound of the approaching cruiser closer now. Hale kept his hands visible, posture neutral, eyes forward. He had taught hundreds of officers how to handle stops exactly like this. He knew what should happen next. What he did not know yet was whether the officer arriving as backup would recognize the signs of a stop that had already gone wrong. The answer to that would determine how this night ended. The rookie officer did not wait for backup to arrive before escalating further. He paced once around Marcus Hale, flashlight cutting across his back, his shoulders, his hands, as if motion itself justified suspicion. "Why are you really out here this late?" he asked. "I answered that already," Hale replied calmly. "I don't like your attitude." Hale said nothing. Silence, he knew, often provoked insecurity faster than words. The officer stepped closer, closing space until passing cars felt uncomfortably near. "Keep your hands where I can see them." "They are." The radio on the officer's shoulder crackled. "Backup en route." The rookie nodded to himself, confidence rebuilding with the promise of reinforcement. He spoke louder now, performing for the empty road. "You know, most people cooperate without all these questions." "Most officers explain their stops," Hale said evenly. That did it. The officer's jaw tightened. He circled again, boots scraping gravel. "Step back further from the vehicle." "For what reason?" "For my safety." Hale complied, taking 2 measured steps toward the guardrail. Wind rushed by as a truck passed, rocking the air. Headlights slowed, drivers craning their necks to see what was happening. The officer placed a hand on his holster, not drawing, just resting it there. A signal, a warning, or a habit he had not learned to control. "You seem tense," the officer said. "I'm standing on the shoulder of a highway with an armed officer escalating without explanation," Hale replied. "That tends to happen." The officer keyed his radio again. "Subject is being uncooperative." Uncooperative. Hale noted the word. The way it was deployed, not to describe behavior, but to frame a narrative before anyone else arrived. Another cruiser's headlights appeared behind them, washing the scene in white before settling into red and blue. The backup officer stepped out slower, older, scanning before speaking. "What do we have?" he asked. The rookie answered quickly. Driver was evasive, questioning my commands, possible obstruction. The backup officer looked at Hale. At his posture, his hands, his calm. Something did not align. "Sir," the backup officer said, "can you tell me what's going on from your perspective?" Hale met his eyes. "I was stopped without a stated reason. I've complied with every lawful request. I'm now being escalated on." The backup officer nodded slightly. He turned back to the rookie. "What was the initial cause for the stop?" The rookie hesitated. "A fraction too long." He shifted his weight. "I observed suspicious behavior." The backup officer waited. Suspicious how? The silence stretched. Passing cars slowed even more now. Phones appeared in windows. The night had gained witnesses. Hale stood quietly between them, letting the exchange unfold. This was the moment where training either held or failed, where ego either doubled down or stepped back. The backup officer took a closer look at the license still in the rookie's hand. His eyes narrowed just slightly. What he was about to realize would change everything. The pause did not calm the rookie. It provoked him. He shifted his stance, squaring up as if the presence of another officer required him to prove something. "Sir, turn around and place your hands behind your back." The words cut through the night sharper than the wind. The backup officer looked at him immediately. "Hold on. I said turn around," the rookie repeated louder now. Marcus Hale did not move. He kept his hands visible at his sides, posture steady, voice level. "Am I being detained?" "Yes," the rookie snapped. "For what specific offense?" "Failure to comply." The backup officer stepped closer, concern creeping into his voice. What command did he fail to comply with? The rookie ignored him. "Turn around now." Hale exhaled slowly. He turned not out of submission, but out of control, facing the guardrail headlights from passing cars flaring in his peripheral vision. He placed his hands behind his back without being told again. The rookie moved in fast, too fast. He grabbed Hale's wrist and twisted it back, metal cuffs already in his hand. The click echoed against the empty road, loud and final. The injustice settled fully into the moment. A senior law enforcement officer stood cuffed on the shoulder of a state highway at night, not because of danger, not because of evidence, but because a rookie could not retreat from his own escalation. The backup officer raised his voice now. "That's enough. What are you doing?" "Securing him," the rookie said. "Officer safety." "Officer safety requires articulation," the backup replied sharply. "What threat did he present?" The rookie tightened the cuffs one more notch, unnecessary, deliberate. Hale did not react. He stared out at the dark road headlights streaking past, cataloging every sound, every word, every misstep. "I am not resisting," Hale said calmly. The rookie stepped back, breathing heavier now, adrenaline visible in the way his chest rose and fell. He keyed his radio again. "Subject detained." The backup officer shook his head slightly, already pulling out his own radio. "Dispatch, I need clarification on this stop." He stepped closer to Hale, lowering his voice. "Sir, are you injured?" "No." The backup officer nodded. He looked at the cuffs, at the rookie, at the license still folded in his hand. This was the point of no return. The moment where a bad stop became a career-ending decision. Where documentation would matter more than explanation. The wind picked up again. A truck roared past, shaking the air. Red and blue lights flashed across the guardrail, the gravel, the faces of both officers. The injustice was complete. Everything that followed would be consequence. The backup officer unfolded the license again, this time, reading it slowly, carefully, the way someone does when they sense they have missed something important. His eyes stopped, then lifted, then hardened. He looked at the rookie and spoke quietly but with unmistakable weight. "You need to uncuff him, now!" The rookie stared at the backup officer as if he had misheard him. What he said. "Uncuff him!" The backup officer repeated slower this time. The rookie shook his head. "He's detained." The backup officer stepped closer, voice dropping. "Look at the license again." The rookie glanced down, irritation still driving him. He unfolded the card, eyes moving fast at first, then slowing. His brow creased. He read the name, then the agency seal, then the rank indicator he had missed the first time. His breathing changed. The backup officer took the license from his hand and turned it so there was no ambiguity. "State Police Commander. Operations Division." The night seemed to go quiet all at once. The rookie swallowed. "That doesn't mean..." "It means everything," the backup officer cut in. "It means you stopped a command-level officer without cause. You escalated without articulation. And you just put him in cuffs." Hale turned his head slightly. His voice stayed even. "You can remove them now." The rookie hesitated, frozen between disbelief and fear. Authority, the kind he thought he had, was gone. Replaced by the realization that the man he had tried to dominate was one of the people who reviewed use of force incidents like this. "Remove them," the backup officer said again. The cuffs came off. Metal clicked open, suddenly small, suddenly powerless. Hale rolled his shoulders, once restoring circulation, his face unchanged. The backup officer stood straighter now, posture formal. "Sir, I apologize for this stop. This should not have happened." Hale nodded once. "Apologies are part of the record. So is everything else tonight." The rookie took a step back, color draining from his face. "I didn't know who he was." "That's the point," the backup officer replied. "You didn't need to." Hale turned to face him fully now. "You escalated because you were challenged, not because you were threatened. You documented resistance that did not exist. And you used restraints without cause." Each sentence landed cleanly without anger. That was worse. The backup officer keyed his radio. "Supervisor to location, immediate. This stop has gone sideways." Hale handed back the calm that had been taken from him earlier. He looked down the road, then back at the two officers. "This interaction will be reviewed," he said. "Not because of who I am, because of what you did." The rookie said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Under the flashing lights on the empty highway, the truth had finally surfaced. Not through argument. Not through volume. Through verification. And everyone there understood the same thing at once. This night was no longer about a traffic stop. It was about consequences. The fallout began before the red and blue lights faded from the shoulder. The backup officer kept his radio-keyed voice steady, controlled. Supervisor requested. Immediate response. Body camera footage flagged, dash cam preserved. His tone made it clear this was no longer routine paperwork. The rookie stood off to the side now, hands empty, posture rigid. The confidence he had carried minutes earlier was gone, replaced by the slow realization that every word he had spoken was already recorded. Every escalation time stamped. Every decision documented. Marcus Hale did not lecture. He did not threaten. He asked for badge numbers. He asked for incident numbers. He asked that the scene be logged exactly as it occurred. Those requests were met without hesitation. Within minutes, a supervisor arrived, then another unit. The scene was frozen in place long enough to reconstruct it from the beginning. The initial stop, the lack of articulation, the escalation, the cuffs, the correction. Hale gave a brief statement. Clear, factual, unemotional. He did not mention his rank until the supervisor already knew it. He focused instead on behavior. Commands without cause. Language used to frame resistance. Restraints applied absent threat. By morning, the review had already begun. Body camera footage was pulled and synced with radio traffic. The rookie's report was read against the video. The discrepancies were immediate. Words like suspicious behavior and uncooperative did not match what the cameras showed. The gap was impossible to explain away. Internal Affairs opened a formal investigation that same day. Training records were reviewed. Prior feedback resurfaced. Notes about tone. About escalation. About an inability to accept questioning without perceiving it as defiance. The decision moved faster than anyone expected. The rookie officer was placed on administrative leave, then terminated for violation of constitutional standards, false reporting, and improper use of restraints. Not retrained. Not transferred. Fired. Supervisors were disciplined for failing to intervene earlier in the stop. Night shift oversight protocols were revised. Mandatory articulation reviews were added for probationary officers statewide. Video from the stop surfaced online days later, not leaked, released. The public watched the escalation frame by frame. Calm questions, rising authority, cuffs. Then the sudden shift when rank was recognized. Hale did not give interviews. He submitted a formal complaint anyway. Not for retribution, for record. A civil action followed and was resolved with mandatory reforms attached. Justice did not arrive as spectacle. It arrived as correction, quiet, methodical, final. A rookie mistake had turned into a career-ending decision because no one stopped it early enough, and the system had been forced to admit that the most dangerous moments are not when officers face threats, but when they face questions they are not prepared to answer. The final lesson of that traffic stop does not live in the firing or the apology offered on the shoulder of the road. It lives in the gap between authority and understanding, and how quickly that gap becomes dangerous when power is not restrained. Legally, a traffic stop is one of the most limited exercises of police power. An officer must articulate a clear reason for the stop. Commands must be tied to safety or law. Detention requires more than discomfort with questions. Handcuffs require an objective threat or lawful arrest. When those steps are skipped, the stop becomes unconstitutional, no matter who the driver is. What failed that night was not knowledge of policy. It was emotional control. The rookie officer interpreted calm questions as defiance. He escalated not because the situation demanded it, but because his authority felt challenged. That is the most common and most dangerous failure point in policing. Ego steps in where articulation should be. There is also a psychological truth department struggle to confront. Inexperienced authority often seeks validation through dominance. When backup is called to reinforce ego rather than safety group, escalation becomes likely. The presence of another officer should slow a stop down. In this case, it nearly locked the mistake in place. For civilians, the lessons are practical and sobering. Keep your hands visible. Speak clearly. Ask whether you are being detained and on what grounds. Do not argue the roadside facts. Let the record form. Cameras, radios, and reports matter more than persuasion in the moment. Calm is not compliance. It is self-protection. For officers, the lesson is uncompromising. Authority is not proven by how firmly you give orders. It is proven by how accurately you justify them. Questions are not threats. Silence is not resistance. And rank, real or unknown, should never be the factor that changes how a stop is handled. This story matters because Marcus Hale did nothing exceptional. He drove lawfully. He complied. He asked reasonable questions. And still he was cuffed. The only reason the outcome changed was recognition. That should trouble anyone who believes the system works the same for everyone. Justice in this case did not arrive because a commander was stopped. It arrived because the documentation was undeniable. Video matched words. Timelines exposed escalation. The system corrected itself only after the harm was already done. The question left behind is not whether the rookie deserved to be fired. The question is how many similar stops never reach correction, because there is no badge, no title, no recognition to interrupt the moment. The answer depends on whether discipline is taught as aggressively as authority, and whether restraint is treated as a skill instead of a weakness. On a dark highway under flashing lights, that difference ended one career and exposed a truth that should have been learned much earlier.